It was supposed to be just another quiet morning on the lake, a slow start to the day with the sun barely peeking over the trees, casting a soft golden light across the water. I was sitting out on my porch, sipping on a cold lemonade, letting the cool breeze wash over me as I soaked in the peace of it all. The water was calm, the birds were chirping, and it seemed like nothing could disturb the tranquility of my little slice of paradise. Then I heard it. It wasn't a normal sound. It was a screech, a high-pitched, ear-piercing wail that quickly crescendoed into a chaotic opera of screams, shouts, and confusion. My eyes snapped open, and I shot to my feet just as a woman came tumbling down, tripping over the brand-new cedar fence I had built just a few weeks prior. And there she was, Chad's bride, face first in a goose nest. Of course, it wasn't just her. Her mother was wailing like someone had stolen the wedding rings. Men in tuxedos were shouting, and the wedding guests were running around, looking like they'd just seen a ghost. Someone had dropped a tray of oysters into the lake, and in the middle of all of it, the DJ, poor guy, was desperately yelling into his mic, asking where to plug in his speakers, which, of course, were half on my side of the fence and half on theirs. I stood there, stunned, for a moment. I took a slow sip of my lemonade, reclined back in my lawn chair, and said, not to anyone in particular, but just to the world, I warned them. This fence was built on truth. But before I got too lost in the moment, I thought, maybe it's time to rewind. Take you back to when this all started, to when the trouble first arrived. It started 3 weeks earlier at the HOA block party. I'd lived by the lake for 8 years without a peep from the HOA. My property was grandfathered in before their existence, so I was on the edge of the development. While everyone else had maybe 20 feet of grass before the lake, I had a full 60. That stretch of lakefront was my peace. My sunrises, my fire pits, my fishing trips with my nephew. It wasn't just land to me, it was sanctuary. Then came Karen. She had that smile. You know the one. That toothpaste commercial grin, the kind that made you feel like you were being both welcomed and judged at the same time. She wasn't anything special at first. Just another HOA president trying to make small talk at the block party, giving that over-polished smile to everyone. I didn't think much of it. I'd always kept to myself. But then came Chad. Chad rolled up in his convertible Mustang, wearing a tank top and Oakley's indoors. He looked like he was auditioning for a reality show called Midlife Crisis Unleashed. Karen introduced him as her cousin from out of state. Apparently, he had just bought the vacant house next door. Chad shook my hand while casually glancing over my property like he was measuring something. The next morning, I found a beach chair, a cooler, and a Bluetooth speaker set up right on my lawn. I thought maybe it was a confused neighbor, so I moved the stuff to the sidewalk and left a polite note. The day after that, Chad knocked on my door, holding a bratwurst in his hand. Karen says this whole shoreline is technically shared space now, he said. Want one? I didn't want a bratwurst. I wanted answers. When I asked Karen about it, she explained, in that sing-song voice of hers, that there had been a reassessment of the community property lines. Apparently, the HOA voted to reassign some of the lakefront to residents with lower property values, to make things more balanced. Yeah, balanced. I asked to see the vote and the reassessment documents. What she handed me was a poorly photocopied set of neighborhood plats and a meeting summary signed by 3 HOA board members, 2 of whom were Karen and, of course, Chad. The third? A woman who had moved out 2 months prior. Her signature? Dated just last week. I didn't buy it. I dug deeper. I pulled out my property deed, the original plat from when the lot was sold, and even called the county assessor's office. Everything I looked at confirmed what I already knew. That lakefront was mine. Fenced or not, Chad had no right to step foot on it. But Karen insisted. Under the new community guidelines, apparently, it didn't matter what the old records said. She even went as far as to spray paint a new shared border and tie a rope between 2 garden stakes to mark off a chunk of my property. I thought she was joking. Until one evening when I came home and found Chad hosting a taco night in my backyard, complete with torches and a fire pit, right next to my dock. That was when it stopped being funny. I tried to reason with Chad, showing him the property documents, but his response was simple. Karen handles all that stuff. I'm just here to enjoy the lake, man. A week later, it went too far. I caught them planting torches and building a fire pit right next to my dock. I knew then that they wouldn't stop unless I did something drastic. So, I called Mitchell. Mitchell's an old friend of mine. He's a licensed land surveyor, and he's got a bit of a passion for exposing nonsense. The next day, he showed up with a full survey crew, armed with drones, laser equipment, and a boatload of gadgets. We marked every inch of my lot. The results were clear, legally airtight. But Mitchell gave me something even better, a scanned digital overlay that showed not only that Karen's new shared border was a complete fantasy, but that part of Chad's deck actually extended 2 feet over into my property. A sloppy build. I smiled. It was time to put an end to this. I had Mitchell help me prepare everything for a showdown, and I put up 3 signs that read, "Fence installation begins in 48 hours." Sure enough, Karen stormed over in her yoga pants and fluffy slippers, yelling about unauthorized construction. I showed her the permits. She yelled about HOA fines. I showed her the county's stamped approvals. She called me selfish, and I simply told her I was just protecting my land. She threatened to call the police. I handed her the sheriff's card. He'd already approved the plan. 2 days later, my fence crew arrived at dawn. They started at the exact corner that ran directly through what Karen had listed as the lakeside reception area on Chad's wedding invitation. By noon, the tent was split in half. The DJ booth sat comically between 2 fence panels, and the stage, completely on my land. Karen shrieked like a banshee when she saw it, trying to stand in front of the workers, but they ignored her. She called the HOA emergency number. No one answered. Then she called the sheriff. When he arrived, he shook my hand and told her that not only was I within my rights, but that she might want to speak to an attorney about trespassing. That night, I sat on my porch, sipping a cold drink, watching Chad frantically try to rework his wedding layout with what little space he had left. Karen paced in the background, waving papers around like they were holy writ. They had no idea what was coming next. This was just chapter 1, and the war for the lakefront wasn't over. The morning after the fence went up, I woke to find 3 lawn chairs stacked by my driveway, with a handwritten note duct taped to my mailbox. It read, in Karen's neat but condescending script, "This is not over. HOA review pending. Cease construction immediately." I chuckled and tossed it in the recycle bin. But the battle was far from over. I had the law on my side, and I wasn't going anywhere. I had the documents, the legal standing, and the community starting to back me up. Karen tried to hold an emergency HOA meeting, but it backfired. Only 2 board members showed up, and one of them left halfway through. The next day, I received an email from the HOA's state regulatory board. Karen's abuse of power had been officially reviewed. Within a week, Mitchell had been elected as the new president of the HOA. A new era of transparency, fairness, and respect for property rights had begun. And Karen? She sold her house 2 months later and moved to a 55-plus community. Rumor had it she was trying to get a position on the advisory board there. But the real victory wasn't Karen's defeat. It was the peace that returned to the lake, and the understanding that respect isn't granted through titles or badges. It's earned. 1 line, 1 law, 1 post at a time. And as for that fence, well, people still talk about it. Some even call it the Karen line. As for me, I sit by my lake, sipping my lemonade, knowing that what I built wasn't just a fence. It was a symbol, and it's still standing, just like the community that's learned to fight for what's right. So what do you think? Was I in the right to stand up to Karen and Chad? Should the HOA have done more to protect property rights? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to share your experiences. I'd love to hear how you've handled conflicts like this in your own communities.